So friends, somehow the Ukrainian side ended up with a paramog at the Dobropolsky site. Have you noticed? That is, look, earlier, if you remember a few days ago, all their chats were buzzing, they say, they cut off the ledge, surrounded the Russians in Yari Kochman, and so on. And now what? And now be silent. Why? But because the Azov people objectively did not work out. We can already sum up some results, because today is exactly 10 days since they were transferred here. And they began their counteroffensive operation, with the main goal, of course, to completely eliminate our breakthrough. To cut off this entire ledge. What did they achieve in the end? Well, they took us out of the village of Veselo. That's right. They knocked us out of the Golden Well, however, for a few days, because the day before yesterday, we again entered the village and occupied its eastern half. Moreover, as you can see, we have advanced 5.5 kilometers to the north from the Golden Well. And having thrown these very Azovites over there closer to the Petrovka district. Well, here in fact, is the whole result of the 10 days of the counteroffensive operation of the vaunted Azov. Well, tell me, if this is all that the vaunted elite is capable of, then well, as if the trouble is with us. After all, in fact, they drove 3 brigades and several assault battalions here. Their church, as I have already said, was completely cut off, and this entire ledge. This line turns out to be Nikhonorovka Lighthouse. 10 days later, as you can see, nothing came of it. Ours stand like a rock. At the same time, of course, I'm not going to embellish anything here, because the intensity of the fighting is off the scale. And it's very difficult for our guys here, of course. But it is also very hard for the residents of Azov. We crumble them here just like that. So it's one thing, you know, when they are buffied, the buffied are fleeing, who did not want to fight, who were forcibly forced there, and so on. But it's another matter when the already vaunted elite begins to run. However, in fairness, we also note that when the Azovians appeared here, they, of course, delayed the fall of Pokrovsk and Rudinsky by their appearance and their attacks. Since we also had to redirect additional forces to the Dobropolsky site in a hurry. But since if we hadn't transported them, then in reality, they would probably have been able to cut off and eliminate our entire breakthrough. That's why now you don't hear any news from Pokrovsk or Rudinsky, because there is no news. In Rudinsky, we are tied up on the approaches, but rather, we are present in the city itself, but on the most extreme street. And it has not worked out to move further yet. It's the same for Pokrovsk, that is, there were initial successes, but now the situation for the Viso has stabilized. But where the situation is developing and developing rapidly, it is in the area of another large city. In the area of Konstantinovka. Over the past day, they have made very good progress in several areas at once. I'll tell you in detail now, but if we turn to the situation in the area of Konstantinovka, there's really a lot to talk about here. First of all, over the past day, our fighters managed to put the squeeze on Alexander Shultin. This is the last fortification on this site, protecting the approaches to the city. Well, the defender, rather. The advance was about 1.5 kilometers, and if you pay attention to the map, you will see that these 1.5 kilometers took place in residential buildings. There were actually 2 fortifications on this site. These are 2 villages of Balaya Gora and Alexandra Shutina. We put the squeeze on the White Mountain a month ago. On the 20th of July, it was announced that the village had been taken under control. And this month, there were battles on the outskirts of Alexander Shultin. We pay tribute to the Apu here. They butted very hard. That is, they did not let them. But as a result, as it usually happens, they could not stand it. What prospects are emerging here with the capture of Alexander Shultin? Well, actually very, very good. First of all, the way to Konstantinovka from this section is now open. The city is less than 5 kilometers away. There are only these suburban areas on the way. Can they delay? Well, they probably can, but not much, of course. After all, these are cottages, and not some powerful concrete fortifications. Well, look what we get in the end. From the forerunner to the city, 2.5 kilometers, from Alexander Shultin, 4.5 kilometers. In other words, you can go out to the city from both sides at the same time. This is one moment. the second one. Taking into account the capture of Alexander Schulden, now it is necessary, of course, to close her entire pocket here. And the neck is already small here, a little more than 3 kilometers. Well, and in the pocket itself, by the way, look, the movement has begun here. Look from the side of the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal over the past day. We have advanced a little more than 1 kilometer, but as you can see, the sections are decently wide. The width is almost 4 kilometers. But in fact, of course, I do not cease to be amazed at the stupidity of the APU, which continue to hold and occupy the supports here. Well, as if you currently have an exit neck of only 3 kilometers. That's not much. This is actually extremely small. Judge for yourself, 3 kilometers. It turns out 1.5 kilometers on each side. Yes, it is clear that here the heights, and the APU do not want to lose them, but they will not hold them anyway. From Alexander Schuten's side, yes, it's impossible to get close to them, but from the Forerunners' side, the situation is completely different. It will be quite possible to get close there, not to knock out the entrenched AFU fighters from there. In general, we observe. I am sure that in the near future, this pocket will be straightened out and all the fighters of the armed forces of Ukraine, who are inside there on a trampoline, either captured or to the next world. And we go on. Also, over the past day, there have been very good advances in the area of the Yarklock. Well, rather, now it's behind him. And in theory, the direction should no longer be near Yurovsky, since the city has come under our full control. But that's how it is still unclear. It is unclear what the final goal the command sets for itself now. But in general, if we look at the overall scale of the map, it seems that to Druzhkovka. That is, the Druzhkov direction. In general, let's go to the details here. There were promotions in 2 sections. Firstly, we advanced from the northern outskirts of the city by 1.5 kilometers towards the village of Verolyubovka. This is where the village is located, and its capture will then allow putting pressure on Alexeyev Druzhkovka. The promotion itself here, of course, was not directly great. For the most part, they just cleaned up the pocket and leveled the front line. Well, plus we have advanced 500 meters along the railway tracks. Also, as you can see, we have moved even further north. Here the advance was 1 kilometer, but also on a fairly wide section of 3.5 kilometers. From the main one, we went to the outskirts of the village of Maiskoye. The village, as you can see from the map, is approaching. The village is quite small. It consists essentially of one main street. Its length is somewhere in the region of 1.5 kilometers, even less. There is a kilometer of 300 meters, well, and 2 small branches from the main street. In other words, some very long and persistent battles for the village are not expected. But with the capture of Maisky, there will be an opportunity to target either Markov or Kuzminovka protein at once. Well, Belek Kuzminovka, so that you understand, is 6 kilometers, and then Kramatorsk. In general, as expected, with the fall of the Yarklock, the front here moved, and moved in very interesting directions. What else can I tell you? In general, everything is in progress. That is, if we rely not on objective control personnel, but on a statement from the Ukrainian side, then we can note that something is happening in the Zaporozhye region, right here in the area of Kamensky and Stepnogorsk. Judging by their statements, but Deep State wrote about it yesterday, ours have already entered Stepnogorsk itself. Plus they reached Primorsky from the side of the voyage, but so far there are no confirming shots. Just keep in mind that something is going on here, and after some time, we will know exactly what is going on. Well, for today, I have everything on the situation at the front. Don't forget about the guys who asked for help. They need 2 Mavic Classic drones. Here is a line with the details at the top. Well, I'm saying goodbye to you today. I wish you a good working day, and see you tomorrow.